Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV. Is it a title race? Is it a title decider? Probably not, but it is Arsenal versus Newcastle tomorrow evening. And to preview the game with us is Lee Judges. Lee, good morning to you. You must be over the moon with where Arsenal are at the minute.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. Listen, before the World Cup, I was well pleased with it. You know, if someone said after 2 games we'd be 7 points clear, I would have laughed at. You know, when you particularly looked at the games that Manchester City had, I think really winnable games, which they were. But you know, to draw against Everton and then you guys not getting past Leeds, so you know, listen. If Carling did weekends, that was one of them. I'll tell you, like, you know, with Spurs as well, you know, capitulating yesterday and their fans all going into one. It's been a good weekend. It's been a very, very good weekend.
Yeah, if Newcastle won, it would have been a better weekend, of course. But I'll let you off with that one. But let's look at the league table, Lee, because look, you're looking very, very pretty at the top, as you can see. 16 games played, 43 points on the board. As you've mentioned, you're 7 clear of City after they dropped points surprisingly against Everton. And there, look at that. Newcastle United, I can't remember last time Newcastle were third, probably about 20 years ago. But when you look at the table, Lee, it is a big, big game for Arsenal, because if Arsenal can't get the 3 points against Newcastle, you would be 10 points clear of Manchester City, and they go to Chelsea, which isn't an easy game by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it's massive, and as you say, like, you know, it's not just that; it's that gap between ourselves and you, and also Manchester United, because Manchester United, by the way, have crept right up there in the last couple of weeks since it's come. They've been on a bit of a run. So we've got some massive games coming up after you know, now. You know, Newcastle is a tough game. And then we've got Spurs and then Man United. So we've got some real tasty games. So and listen, that's what you want, isn't it? Like, as a Newcastle fan, you'd be saying the same. You know, it's a big game for you guys. There's something riding on it now for Arsenal and for Newcastle. Every game you play, I think that I don't know the aspirations of Newcastle at the beginning of the season, but for us, it was to get into the top 4. Probably the same with yourselves, and that's what we're doing at the moment, and it's very, very exciting that we could go on and do what we're doing at this moment in time, John. If I'm not being I don't think arrogant when I say this, I think Arsenal are the best team in the league at the moment on the way we're playing, form and everything. I think we're better than Manchester City at this moment in time. You know, that things can change. Injuries are a key thing in that, of course, but we're playing really, really well, confident. And the greatest thing for me as an Arsenal fan now is that I'm looking forward to Monday. Like 2-3 years ago, I was dreading games. You know what I mean? We were talking about this earlier on one of my WhatsApp groups. You know, I wasn't really in love with Arsenal a few years back, like, you know, really. But Mikel, that's what the one thing that he has done. He's got the fans on side again, and you know, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Like, you know, and every game that Arsenal play at the moment.
Yeah, I think Arsenal are just absolutely fine, as you've mentioned. And if you look at their form, it's just absolutely remarkable. It really, really is. And look, Brighton is a massive, massive win. I think any team that goes to the Amex and gets 3 points and scores 4 goals, I think that'll be very, very rare at the best of times. Obviously, that 3-1 win, it was comfortable in the end against West Ham. Obviously, the second half, 3 really good goals. But if you look at where the goals are coming from, they're coming from all over, Lee. You know, obviously, Jesus with mentioned, obviously, is the big money signing, 5 goals so far this season. But look at that. Martinelli with 7 goals, Ødegaard 7 goals, Saka 6 goals. There's goals from everywhere. Is Martinelli, in your opinion, the main man that Newcastle have to be worried about?
Oh, well, I wouldn't say main man. I think, you know, you'd have to say Saka and him are on par. It is unbelievable, you know, and it's a bit of a coincidence that it is with Newcastle we're talking about, because that was the first time I see Martinelli play a few seasons ago. Do you remember when Arsenal nicked a 1-0 win against you with Aubameyang scoring? He come on as a sub in the last few minutes, and even though he come on, I thought, wow, what a player he looks. And he is my favourite player. He's a bit more direct than than Saka, but they're killing it on both sides at this moment in time. And I thought what was a good thing on the game against Brighton is that they put a right back on him specifically, and it was a difficult game for him at some stage, but eventually he come through it and destroyed him, so that's what he can do. I think the good thing about Arsenal at the moment is if you defend deep against us, that gives a space for the likes of Odegaard and Xhaka to play in the midfield, and if you go on a high line, the pace of Martinelli and Saka can get you as well. So we've got the options, and that's the good thing about it. At the moment, we can play a couple of ways. Jesus is going to be a big loss for us. Of course, he is. He was in fantastic form before the World Cup, but Eddie can't do no more than what he's done in the last couple. Just come in and got nicked a couple of goals. So goals are important. So I think that Martinelli is one to watch there. Trippier. I think likes to get forward, I think away from home, I think Eddie Howe will say to him, look, you're going to have to be a little bit more defensive today, and that suit Martinelli, because Martinelli can go up against him and use his pace. So that'd be an interesting matchup, them two, by the way. That'd be interesting to see what happens there if Trippier can nullify him. If he does, then fair play to him.
Well, Kieran Trippier is the man in form. If you look at Newcastle United right now, Lee, he's got the most assists. He seems to be, I don't know if you're a fantasy football man, but he seems to be the one that seems to be always right back at the minute in terms of fantasy football. Always seems to get the most points. He always seems to be on man of the matches consistently, and he is a massive outlet for us from that right hand side. I know he's a former Tottenham man, but apart from that, I'm sure you must be quite impressed with how he's done since he arrived at Newcastle, because he was the first big signing under this new regime.
Yeah. Listen, I think Newcastle have made some very good signings, and I think that. And I'm not saying it because I'm on here with a Newcastle. Everybody likes Newcastle, you know what I mean, because of their fans and the way that they go about themselves. They've always been a good fan base and big club, massive club, and I think every other fan's got a little bit of affection for it. I don't know. I think that might change in the next few years, by the way. But and Trippier, come into the club. I think, when he was at Spurs, he was never really a first choice at Spurs, and but as like most of people, once you leave Spurs, you improve. So he's got better as he's gone on. So and he's at a proper big club now, really, like at Newcastle. So
exactly,
he's been a really good player. Obviously, you got our man up there, Joe Willock, who's done very, very well for you. So, but listen, I think with Newcastle at this moment in time, they haven't really spent the money that everybody expected that they was going to spend. I expected them to spend more than what they've done, but what they have done is they've built a very, very good, consistent team up there. And I think, is it 12 games you're unbeaten at this moment in time? So that's a tough ask and to do in the Premier League. So some good signings, some good players there. I'm a big fan of Joe Linton since he's gone into midfield. I know he's not probably playing there as much now in the last couple of games, I've noticed, but because of injuries and whatever. But and this is without, is it Isaac up front? He's been injured as well, so you haven't really had your main guy up there. I know you spent a lot of money on him, so you just got to those guys are going to come back, and when they do, Newcastle are going to be in a good position to attack. So that's why I'm thinking to myself, it's very important that we win this game, to just keep that points gap very, very nicely where it is, because I do think Newcastle will kick on in the next part of the season, still in the cup competitions, and also, I still think that that you may be out of the top four if you lose on. You may Manchester United might get above you in the next game if you lose, but in the long term, I still think Newcastle are going to get in this top four. And I've said it, I predicted it quite a long while ago. I watched them a few times. I've watched you guys, and I think that you got a very, very good chance. So I don't think it's all, everything hinges on this game for both teams. I don't think it does, but it's without a doubt, it's a massive, massive game.
Yeah, it's a huge game. You talk about Joe Linton in terms of moving from midfield. It's allowed other players to go onto the wings and get more goals. And and one of the main men at the minute seems to be on fire, because maybe from a little word from Jack Grealish, it's Miguel Almiron. Lee, he's just been an absolute fire. You look at Newcastle season all round in the Premier League. Miguel Almiron, as you can see on your screen, 9 goals so far this season. He's absolutely on fire. He's got more goals than Callum Wilson, and that wouldn't have been. I think some people would have thought I was in a straitjacket if I said that at the start of the season. 9 goals for a player that just couldn't seem to hit the back of the net for Newcastle. You must be so impressed with what you're seeing with Almiron.
It is an incredible, incredible turnaround, and I think you've got to give the player the credit for it, and also your manager, because what's ever happened there is give him the confidence to go on. And I suppose you're all thanking Jack Grealish as well for what he said, because it's been an unbelievable turnaround of events for him. The goal we got the other night, the other day, was sensational. Like the touch and finish, everything about him at the moment. When he first come into the league, he was a little bit erratic when he thought there's a player there, but he just seemed like he wasn't making the right decisions, and he was just like a little bit. His feet were a little bit too quick for his brain. I don't really know, but what's ever happened, they've calmed him down, just calmed him down in that final third a little bit, and his work rate, everything about him. It's been, I think he's up there. He's got to be up there with one of the players of the season at this moment in time. I think won't get it because it's Newcastle. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like a De Bruyne or a Haaland. You know what I mean? And probably you have to accept that Haaland's been sensational, but he's definitely up there, and it's a fantastic story, by the way, from really a couple of years. I think he was even being left out of the team at one stage when he wasn't guaranteed the starting, and to now be your main man when you've got all the players that you've got now. It's just unbelievable. You would have probably thought, well, that's him going to be moving on or whatever. Like probably a few of them, you would have thought that, to be honest. And Longstaff's another one that you'd have probably thought, well, that's his lot. I even actually thought Joe Willett would buff. Oh, poor Joe's going to go up there and they're going to, not the case. You have to give credit to the manager. He's give everybody a chance. What he's come in there and done, he said, look, we've got money, yeah, we're going to spend it, but while you're here, you've got a chance to sustain the team and whatever. And these players have done that, and Almiron has done it in abundance. You know what I mean? You wouldn't get rid of him now, would you? You know what I mean, with the performances that he's doing. And listen, I think that's the key position for me for this game, because if Zinchenko has a weakness, is his defending. He's not the greatest. But he does get forward and he does break up play very, very quickly. So that is going to be a very, very interesting match on that right hand side. Who comes out on top of that? But no, he's been fantastic. And I'll tell you what, from a neutral looking in, I think everybody's quite pleased that he has. Particularly what Jack said. I mean, I don't know why Jack would have said that, but. And I'm a big Jack Grealish fan, but
so am I.
I think, to be honest, both of them took it very well. Like a bit of banter with each other about it as well, haven't they? So, it just shows you the characters of the both players. And with Almiron, he's shown fantastic character to come through what he's done. And I would have to say he's the main man at Newcastle now. So well done.
Yeah, can't believe it myself. I have to ask you this question about Mikel Arteta, because I know I've only got you for a few more minutes. If Mikel Arteta wins the Premier League with Arsenal, but Eddie Howe finishes in the top 4 with Newcastle, who gets manager of the season?
Whoa. That's a good question. I think that because Arsenal would win the league, I think Mikel would probably get it. But I think both would have been very, very pleased with their season's work. If that's the case, listen, I think that Arsenal, the one I was talking about this earlier on, the one greatest thing about Mikel, and it's not so much winning games. He's got the fans back on side. We've got the fans loving Arsenal again. I love going Arsenal, and I think Newcastle will probably be the same. Like over the last few years, no, that's not necessarily to do with Eddie Howe, but Newcastle fans, I've been up there a few times, weren't enjoying their football club, but you are now, and once you're enjoying being that sort of thing with Arsenal and Newcastle again, it does help. So I think both managers got to take a lot of credit for that. I think that even if Arsenal lose a game now, there's a little bit more forgiving with Mikel than what there was in previous years and whatever. And I think that's the same with Newcastle. Look at Newcastle the other day; they drew with Leeds, and it was like a loss for you guys, wasn't it? You know what I mean? That's how it feels. When you get into that situation, you know you're doing well. You know that something's right when you're not winning games and you think it's a loss. So credit to both. I think that I think, you know, with Eddie Howe, I think that if I'd be really honest, I think that wasn't the first choice at Newcastle, as you know. But I'm probably a lot of Newcastle fans. I'm not so sure about him and whatever. Like, a little bit like Mikel, if I'll be honest. But he's turned everybody around with what he's done, you know. And his stock has gone up tremendously because of that. Like, you know, I don't think. But so you have to look at the owners of Newcastle and say to them, you know, okay, they've spent a bit of money, but that was a very, very shrewd decision from them as well. You know, they've got to take a lot of credit for that, for giving him the chance. And it's not. Do you know what? Which is a great thing. It's the same with Mikel as well. You know, well, he'll be there for a year or so, and then we'll get someone better in, or that. No, not now. You know what I mean? Like, Eddie's there for the long haul now, and I think that Mikel is. And the one good thing about Arsenal, is that there's been a tendency of managers. Get rid of your manager. Like, you know, Arsenal have gone down a different route of saying, no, we're going to stick with him, whatever. You know, very, very, sometimes people will say a little bit fortunate to keep his job, but ultimately they've done that. And now other teams are following a little bit of suit. Manchester United are following suit in that way, like going down that. So it's all good things. So, and I think Newcastle will go down that route as well. I'd hate to see Newcastle going down the Chelsea route of like sacking managers every. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know,
yeah.
And what I hope is with Newcastle and that they stay a proper club. You know what I mean? Like, where and do the right things properly. Where I don't think Chelsea have really done that. You know what I mean? Manchester City are a side that's just thrown money at it and all that. And Newcastle, even though they've got the money, have not thrown it like willy-nilly at anything. There seems a structure, a way of doing it and everything like that. And they're playing by the rules. I think they know that they've got to play by the rules because, you know, that they come down on them heavily. Like, you know, certainly they should have done that with Manchester City, but they've not. So, yeah, both done very, very well. But I think that if Arsenal were to win listen, I think even if Arsenal comes second, and I'll be really honest with you this, if Arsenal come second and Newcastle come third and fourth, I believe that Eddie and Mikel should be better, have done a better job than Pep. But he'll get it because, you know, they've won the league. So it'd be interesting. It'd be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that last bit for sure. Just finally, let's get your prediction for tomorrow night, Lee. Newcastle actually defensively haven't conceded a first half goal since Wolves again in August against Wolves. So defensively, we're tough to break down in the first half. Can you see many goals, or do you think it might be a bit of an edgy one?
I think it'd be an edgy one. I think that that's a great stat. I think Newcastle got the best. Have they got the best defensive record in the league? I think that you know,
yeah, most clean sheets. I think
most, yeah. So it's going to be a difficult game for Arsenal. Listen, I'm going to be really honest with you. Home advantage, key to me, and we owe you one for what you've done to us last season as well. Like, I'm not forgiving you for that. So I'm going to go for Arsenal to 2-0. Now, will they get one in the first half now? I didn't know that. So I won't be so panicky if it's 0-0 at half time. There you go. Like, but I think that, yeah, just because it's home advantage, I think Arsenal will nick it. But listen, if we didn't, it wouldn't surprise me. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but I think this is going to be a very, very tough game. I think this is. I'm going to be bold and say this now. This is a tougher game for us than Man United at home. There you go.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Lee, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. Like I say, I just want to wish you all the very best for the new year. And again, not too much good luck for tomorrow, but hopefully Newcastle can get something down at the Emirates. Make sure you watch Lee's channel, Lee Judges' TV as well. And he's part of Arsenal Fans TV as well, AFTV as well. So make sure you catch him on there. We'll be doing his fans and his reaction for Newcastle's trip to the Emirates. Yeah, so I think that's it for today. So big thanks to Lee. Big thanks to everybody watching as well. And we'll see you all very soon.